Hi guys, Totallydubbed here, and today I'm doing a video review on the Bose Noise Cancelling Headphones 700. Now that is more of a mouthful to say than the QuietComfort 35s. Now in this review I'll be comparing the 700s to the QC35s and the Sony 1000 or WH-1000XM3s. There's also the Jabra Elite 85H, which I'll be referencing to, the Nuraphone headphones as well, and also PSB speakers, ANC headphones as well. Now the reason I mention all these headphones is because they pretty much sit at either the same price or are cheaper than the new Bose headphones. Now the Bose headphones can be found for £350. That's a significant premium over the QC35s and even the Sony XM3s. So without further ado, let's get into this review. So first off, in the box, you're going to get a set of headphones, which I know is going to be pretty obvious. The case itself has changed from last year's model, or the QC35, just generally speaking, let's say the predecessors. The case itself is slimmer. Now, the headphones design has completely changed from the QC35s. This is a completely new take from Bose themselves, and also is a new take in some respect in comparison to your more traditional looking headphones. This is a Surface headphones on your right, so it looks a little bit different from what you're accustomed to. And I must say the design is very sleek, and I'll get into that in just a bit. Now the case itself has a little magnetic little clasp over here, which you'll find a USB-C to USB-A cable. And I know finally we've got Bose with USB-C connectivity, and you've got a 3.5mm jack to 2.5mm jack. There is no microphone included on the interconnect or the cable that is used for using it non-wirelessly. Now the headphones themselves, as I said before, have got a redesigned look, and I must say the design is very appealing. I would go as far as saying it's the most attractive Bluetooth over-the-ear headphones that you could potentially find out there. I really like this seamless design between the headband and how it kind of turns into the actual construction which is holding in the drivers. Now what you might notice is the headphones do sit a little bit flatter than the QC35s, or let's say other headphones out there, let's say the Surface headphones. However, they do not fold inwards, so you can't fold them inwards anymore, which is a shame because the QC35s did that, and I know a lot of people would actually be missing that feature, so it's worth bearing in mind that this no longer does it. As you're able to see, the headphones still do kind of swivel outwards, so therefore you can still, you know, put them in a case or put them neatly in a bag. In terms of the headphones design, the top of the headphone is kind of redesigned. They've essentially taken away that that material that would attract a lot of dust or like dirt, and replace it with like a rubbery feel. Now that might not feel premium as such, but it does mean that when it comes to sweat, dirt or whatever have you, it's very easy to clean, and you know, it won't cause any problems. The top of the headband as well looks quite nice and sleek, and no complaints there. Now the headphones drivers, they're relatively the same in terms of the width and the diameter of the actual driver and how they sit on your over your ears. However, the feel of the headphones is vastly different from the QC35s. Now the reason I say this is because the QC35s and even the Sony XM3s have this sort of floating effect. They feel like they're kind of floating around your head rather than kind of having a clasp. Now, what that means is the clamping force of the 700s has increased, and therefore they sit more securely on your head than they did before. Now, that is a pro and a con at the same time. The pro is if you're going to go on runs, or you want to be working out, or if you're going to be doing a light jog or whatever, it's not going to feel like it's going to fall off. It really does feel sturdy. However, if you're someone like me who wears glasses, who wants to wear them at the office, or let's say for long hours of gaming, you're going to find these more uncomfortable to wear than the floating effect of the QC35s or the XM3s. So it's neither a pro or a con, it's kind of in between. It really is, your mileage may vary over here. Personally, I much prefer the floating type of design because I'm not going to take headphones, full-sized headphones on runs, so I'd much rather a very comfortable feel when you're over the head. Now in terms of the buttons and what you've got, so you've got an on and off button on the right hand side, and the left hand cup can be indicated within the ear pads, which is nothing new. The on and off button can be found on the right hand side. You have also got your assistant, and that is let's say Google Assistant, Amazon Alexa, or let's say if you've got Siri or Bixby on your phone, you can access that as well. The integration with Amazon Alexa is the best with the headphones. I've been told that Google Assistant, Hey Google integration is going to become a thing in the future, but Bose is working on that. The Hey Alexa integration works flawlessly. You just say Hey Alexa and it will automatically pick up without having to press the button. Whilst with the other assistants you will have to press the button to initiate that initial conversation, so that then you can then talk to your assistant and ask it questions. Of course, you'll need to set that up through the app, be it Google app or the Alexa app. So worth bearing in mind. Now the noise cancelling feature as well has been kind of revamped. You can now toggle through different ANC modes, and I'll show you this on the app a little bit later, but you can toggle through ANC modes. Now you can have 3 presets, so let's say 0 at 0 ANC, 5 middle, and 10 being the utmost highest ANC level. Essentially 11 levels of ANC or levels of isolation from the outside world, and you can customize those 3 presets. Now if you're like me and you rather have just an on and off, like let's say from 0 and 10, you essentially will set the ANC toggles to 0, 0 and 10, and therefore it will automatically toggle between 0 and 10. Basically the duplicate will be kind of negated. So worth bearing in mind that it's quite nice to toggle on and off, and I find that the integration of this is far more responsive than the XM3s, which do take an extra couple of seconds to flick through the different modes. The 700s really are instantaneous when you're moving through the ANC levels, and if you disable all the voice prompts, you basically get a seamless experience, and I must say I'm very impressed with that. Now the USB-C connectivity is, I must say, it's been a long time coming, but it's nice to see that Bose has finally adapted to more later generation connectivity. The USB-C connectivity is great, provides a flash charge as well. If you were to plug it in for a short amount of time, you can get a certain amount of battery life out of it. Again, mileage may vary depending on how long you plug it. Then you've got the 2.5mm jack for that wired connectivity. If you don't want to use the Bluetooth functionality and you've run out of battery, you can still reuse these wired, and obviously that won't have ANC unless you switch it on, and therefore it will bypass the Bluetooth via 3.5 or say 2.5 to 3.5mm jack. Now other than that, in terms of the actual isolation of the headphones, I must say, due to that extra clamping force you get on these headphones, they do feel like they passively isolate better. In other words, it's almost like putting earmuffs on your head a little bit more tightly, and you feel that the isolation from the outside world is slightly better on the QC35s. Now before I move on from the section, I must say there's also a touch sensitive pad, which I must say is extremely responsive, and bringing these Surface headphones into shot, I was very impressed with the Surface headphones and how responsive they are when it came to touch controls and playback controls. And very much same case over here with the Bose. Just on this little panel over here, you just flick up and down or double tap or hold down in order to read your battery levels. And I must say the integration of the touch sensitive panel over here is very responsive, extremely impressive, and I've got absolutely no complaints. I must say it's the best type of integrations, very much on par with the Surface headphones when it comes to touch sensitivity. So no complaints there whatsoever in terms of the build quality or the actual design, other than the fact that these have a higher clamping force than its predecessors and the XM3s. So now let's move on to the app, and first of all I want to talk about the annoyances of the app. Now what I must say is that even though the headphones are connected via the Bluetooth section, if I go onto the app you can see that sometimes it's not connected. Now there it connected, whereas just like 20 seconds ago when I did that it didn't connect. So I'm not the first one to actually report this. If you look around you'll see that other people have reported the same sort of behavior where it won't automatically pick up through the app, and that means that it can be a little bit annoying if you do use the Bose app. Now I can't see people using the Bose app quite regularly, but it's just worth bearing in mind that the integration isn't as seamless as other Bose products would be. Now that ANC button that I was talking about that you can toggle, as you can see I'm pressing it, it basically instantaneously goes between 10 and 0. Now I'll show you the settings and what you can actually do through the app. Now you can rename the product, which can be nice. In terms of Bluetooth connection, you can add new devices on there. The voice assistant, you can see I've got a Google Assistant that's been set up. You can use the device assistant or Alexa. If you click the setup and settings, it goes to your the Google Assistant app. In terms of the shortcut, now there's the one I was telling you that if you press and hold the side panel for the where the touch sensitive panel is, you can hear the battery level, or you can enable or disable the wake word. And if you're wondering what the wake word is, that's the Hey Alexa wake word, which is only enabled when you enable voice assistant as Alexa. So if I do that, what you'll be able to see, the wake word option now appears. Now the self voice is essentially you hearing back what you're saying. So therefore, if you're going to be shouting, you might feel, oh, maybe I'm being a bit too loud for my outside environment. You can toggle the levels that you can hear yourself. The noise cancelling, as you can see here, you've got the favorites, the 3 favorites. I've got 10, 0 and 0. As I said, you can customize it to put it to a certain level if you would like, and then save it. And then you can also enable or disable noise cancelling. And remember the last setting that you had. So for example, if you liked it to have it on 5 and then you had 10 and 0 there, if you had it on 5, switched them on and switched them off and switched them back on, it'll go back to 5, which was the last setting that you used, which is quite nice. The prompts, the voice prompt, essentially talk back to you and let you know what's happened. So for example, I don't know, now connected to Totally Dubbed View 20. In that case, it will have that voice prompt. You can enable, disable that, and you can switch the language. Not all languages are supported, but the vast majority of the most common languages are there. And then you've got the power off. So I've got it as never, but if you went to use your headphones, put them on the table for a little while, for example 5 minutes, and you can have them auto power off, which can be useful for saving or conserving battery. Other than that, you can control the volume of the headphones directly through here as well. You see the remaining charge by the minute, which is quite nice. And then other than that, you can see what's playing. So for example, if I were to play music over here, it would actually show up over here in terms of the song information. So the app itself is comprehensive, provides everything you kind of want from a Bose app, but I must say that sort of integration where sometimes it wouldn't register as the Bose headphones being actually connected and already paired to your device is kind of an annoyance. But again, how often are you going to be going into the Bose app? I'm not sure. At least when I've owned the headphones, I haven't really needed to go to the Bose app that often. So now we move on to the performance section of this review, and very much the most important thing. Now, first of all, I do want to talk about the battery life, and I know I alluded to it in terms of how it charges via USB-C. However, I do want to mention that these have 20 hours of quoted battery life. Now, your mileage may vary depending on the usage, depending on the ANC level, the volume of the headphones, how often you interact with the touchpad, but Bose quotes around 20 hours. Now, 20 hours is plenty for your long-haul flight. However, if you're flying from here all the way to New Zealand, like I might be doing soon, then what you'll find is that won't last you the entirety of the journey. Whilst the Sony XM3s offer 30 hours of playback, which is that extra 10 hours that you'd want on that really long haul flight. Moving on from that, I do want to talk about Bluetooth connectivity. More specifically, I want to talk about the Bluetooth codec support. Now these support SBC and AAC only. Now unfortunately these don't support aptX, aptX-HD or LDAC, which its competitors do. Something that I would expect from a £350 set of wireless headphones. Worth bearing in mind, you're not going to get the utmost sound quality over Bluetooth with these headphones due to codec limitations. Now moving on from that, let's talk about the microphone quality. Now the microphone quality, I must say, is absolutely sensational. Doing calls on this and listening back, or having my fiance calling me with these headphones on and me listening on the other end with my phone, these were far superior to any Bluetooth headphones or earphones I've ever come across. And that's a pretty large statement from the pool of headphones that I've heard. And that is comparing it to the Sony XM3s, the QC35s, the Surface headphones, the Nuraphones, the Jabra Elite 85H, every single headphone I could think of in terms of Bluetooth or noise cancelling headphones or even earphones, these came out on top. The Jabra Elite 85H were potentially the closest competitors it had when it came to pure microphone quality. The 85H had a really nice microphone quality, but even then the 700s came out on top. So it's worth bearing in mind if you do like taking conference calls or do like taking calls on the go, the 700s will give you the best sort of sound quality. Now moving on from that, let's talk about the actual noise cancelling that you get with these headphones. I'm not talking about the microphone, I'm talking about when they're over your ears and you're placing them, how much are you going to hear of the exterior noise? Now what I must say, these headphones, and you can see I went a bit quieter because of the passive isolation now, the actual noise cancelling you get, the ANC feature that you get on the 700s is actually very good. However, you can note that I didn't say excellent or the best or class leading noise cancelling, simply because these headphones are still beaten, and I say still because the QC35s were also beaten by the Sony XM3s. Now when I compared the three, literally ABC testing, putting them on, having some music or white noise, plain noise or whatever have you playing through my speakers, I could tell the difference between the three. The 700s were a slight improvement over the QC35s. They're able to block out that mid-range just a tad bit better. And when I say a small bit, I really do mean you really have to be listening out for the differences. I came down to the app and toggling these to 8 or 9 equated to the ANC levels you get on the QC35. Therefore that extra notch going to 10 gives you that extra bit of noise cancelling that you get on the 700s, which you won't get on the QC35s. Moving on from that, you've got the XM3s. Now the XM3s were very much deemed as the best noise cancelling headphones, and I was expecting the 700s to kind of push them away and be like, hey, we're Bose again, we are the best. Unfortunately, that was not the case. Now I know technically noise cancelling only works at lower frequencies, and in this respect all three headphones that I mentioned pretty much were identical. But when it came to mid to high frequencies, the XM3s did a better job. Now I had to look into it a little bit more, and it seems like not many people covered the mid to high frequencies or why that's happening, and it's simply due to Sony's QN chip, which is actually due to Qualcomm as well, which have manufactured a chip. Now that chip is able to block out mid to high frequencies using digital processing and therefore cancelling out those sounds that you might hear. So when I was comparing the three headphones, there was a noticeable difference with the XM3s where there was spoken words, like for example I'm speaking now, there's odd sibilants that you might hear, or the vocals that come out on songs or whatever have you, or you're in a commute, or screeching train noise that's going by. What I found is the 700s over here were able to block out a decent amount of noise, but the XM3s took it to another level and were able to block out that noise just that little bit better, meaning I was more isolated from the noise, from the environment that I was in. Therefore, when it comes to pure noise cancelling, the XM3s beat the 700s, whilst the 700s are slightly, and I mean the ever so slightly better than the QC35s. Essentially, these headphones were still top tier noise cancelling headphones, but not the top dog. Hopefully that makes sense. And now we move on to the actual sound quality of the headphones. How do these things sound? Well, one thing I do want to mention, and it kind of leads into the sound quality, is actually due to the build quality of the headphones. Now that might seem a bit weird. Why am I talking about the build quality when I should be talking about the sound quality? Well, simply, the headphones design, and you might hear it, that noise does reverberate through the headphones. And that's simply due to that metal bit over here hitting the housing. Now, why would that be a problem when it comes to sound quality? Well, simply because it takes away from the overall experience that you're listening, the overall listening experience, the sound quality that you're getting from these headphones. The design is beautiful, but it does let it down if and only if you are running, jogging, doing any sort of physical exercise, or if you're like me, a really fast walker, so therefore you're stamping left and right and that headphone makes this noise. Now, the problem with that design is that it does come through and reverberates throughout your ears, and it really does take away from the actual listening experience that you'd want from these headphones. So now, with that aside, how do these compare? Well, in comparison to the QC35s, I must say Bose has pretty much, in some respect, kept a Bose typical sound signature. You've got a pretty soft tone throughout the frequency range. You've got not overly accentuated highs. You haven't got a deep sub-bass or pronounced mid-bass. You've got pretty forward-sounding mids. And all of those traits that I just said and those frequencies are very much the case with the 700s as they are with the QC35s. However, there were quite a few differences between the headphones, and that was mainly in the mid-range response. Now the lower mids, to me, sounded a little bit veiled on the 700s over the QC35s. And the reason behind that, at least in my opinion, was because the mid-bass frequencies have been a little bit boosted up, making them a little bit fun sounding versus the QC35s, which sounded a little bit duller. And therefore the mid-bass has a little bit more of an impact, but therefore sacrifices that lower mid-range a little bit. It's almost like we've got a little bit of a dip. Now that little bit of a dip does come across when you're comparing it between the QC35s and does feel like it's kind of a veiled headphone. However, if you're picking up these and have no reference to the QC35s, I think you'll be absolutely satisfied. As I said before, laid back sort of sound signature, which isn't aggressive in any sort of frequency, in any of the frequencies. However, in comparison to QC35s, they're very much different. And the biggest thing to me was the uncontrolled, which is not a good thing, uncontrolled mid-bass that I heard on the XM3s. Now the XM3s, to me, sorry if I said QC35, but what I mean, the XM3s have an uncontrolled mid-bass. And therefore, these 700s sound a lot more refined and controlled and a lot more, like they've got a better presence in their mid-bass. However, when it comes to the sub-bass response, the XM3s are far superior than these, extend a lot lower and have that deep rumble that you might like in such as R&B or dancehall songs. Then it came to the soundstage, and the XM3s again excelled versus the 700s. The soundstage was a lot more airy, a lot more open. Instrument separation was a lot better in terms of audio cues. So for example, when I was gaming with the 700s versus the XM3s had much better positional cues over the 700s. So therefore the overall listening experience, even though the uncontrolled mid-bass was sometimes a little bit funny to listen to, like that wobbly sound bass, the mid-bass, I still felt the overall sound experience I got via the XM3s was far superior. Let alone to say that that was using LDAC codec via my Android phone and therefore delivering audio at a much better bitrate or sort of transmission quality over Bluetooth. So that's pretty much it in terms of my review and in terms of my thoughts and opinions about the 700s. My overall verdict essentially is these are the most stylish noise cancelling headphones that you can buy, period. However, they're not the best noise cancelling headphones, be it for sound quality or ANC specifically. In this respect, the Sony XM3s are better. They also fold in, they're cheaper as well to buy no matter where you live in the world, and in terms of the actual functionalities you get through Sony's app are far more comprehensive than what you get with Bose's app. So the only reason I would consider the 700s over what I would consider the best noise cancelling headphones on the market, the XM3s, is purely the aesthetics. The aesthetics of the 700s are very beautiful. I've got no complaints about them, and I must say they do catch everyone's eye, especially when I was in the office. Everyone's like, they look like nice headphones, they look a little bit different. Oh, they're the new Bose headphones. Those aesthetic, I can't fault these. Again, aesthetics does mean that it has design problems, which can be an issue in certain scenarios, but that's something else to consider. So overall, I would say these are the second best noise cancelling or the third best headphones on the market. I would potentially put them in the same class as the Nuraphones, because the Nuraphones are quite unique in terms of how they fit. Depends if they fit or not for you. Then in terms of the Sonys, they're not as good sounding as the Nuraphones or as controlled, but yet they do provide the best normal over-ear experience that you can get and are very comfortable to wear for long periods of time. So there we go guys, that's been my honest, unbiased, unpaid, unsponsored review. As always, that's what I do on my channel. If you like that, make sure you give it a like, subscribe if you want to see more, favourite and share. I don't want to bore you, but nevertheless, if you do all of that, it helps the channel grow and it helps me continue doing what I do. Let me know in the comments below what you think about these headphones, if you bought them or not, or if you compared them. Let me know what you think. And other than that, if you're interested in buying them or its competitors, make sure you check down links in the description below. I'll put a little description as to why you should consider the alternatives if you weren't paying attention throughout this video. Alright guys, I've been Totally Dubbed. Take care and bye bye.